Around the world, people have reported being targeted by invisible weapons run by covert government operations for years. Some of what they report includes hearing voices or music, a phenomenon known as voice to skull, being burned both via external burns on the skin and internal burning sensations, experiencing thoughts that are not their own, violent dreams, gang stalking, surveillance, and much more. Of late, some individuals are reporting feeling as though they've been connected to AI or the internet in a way that hasn't necessarily been explained before. These people are known as targeted individuals. They're often dismissed by mainstream medicine or psychiatry as simply experiencing some form of psychosis or schizophrenia. But more and more people are surfacing with these experiences seemingly out of nowhere. And it is our belief that their stories warrant further investigation rather than just being dismissed, especially because of how many there are. Dr. Anna Mahaicha has been at the forefront of researching nanotechnology and synthetic biology advances and how this may relate to the Targeted Individual Program. Richard Lighthouse and Anna Toledo from Targeted Justice have been fighting in court for the rights of people to not be experimented on, with documented evidence of this covert government operation. They join us with more after this short break. Z Media is proud to partner with Aussie businesses that support freedom and believe in you and your family getting the best possible nutrition you can. Stockman Steaks is a third-generation family meat business supplying direct from freedom-loving Aussie farmers with pasture-raised, non-genetically modified, humanely raised local meat. Their meats are guaranteed mRNA-free. That's right, no mRNA in these grass-fed, antibiotic, hormone-free animals. By buying from Stockman Steaks, you'll be supporting Aussie farmers who share your values and are committed to giving you the best quality meat. Head to their store to see their delicious range of carefully selected meat boxes or create your own. Visit stockmansteaks.com.au/Maria. Support businesses that support us and give your family the nutrition they deserve. Dr. Anna Mahaicha, Richard and Anna from Targeted Justice, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having us, Maria.
Of course, of course. Well, most of the audience knows Dr. Anna Mahaicha, but in the event that they don't, Dr. Anna, if this is the first time people are tuning in, because this is now a subject that a lot of people are starting to want to learn more about, can you give them a brief overview of your experience and particularly focusing on the nanotechnology, if you will?
Absolutely. So I'm an internal medicine physician from the United States. I have an anti-aging clinic, and I started looking at the COVID shots with Dr. David Nixon, and we found self-assembling nanotechnology. And then I continued to look at the human blood and saw these self-assembling technology there, and got involved in different organizations, including Targeted Justice, because my research certainly showed that this is the technology that is being used for total human enslavement and the transhumanist agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Anna. And Richard and Anna are here from Targeted Justice. I want to say this is, like I said, a subject that a lot of people are growing more interested in because of the phenomena that is actually increasing of individuals experiencing things like voice to skull, individuals experiencing very strange phenomenon where they feel like they've been merged with technology. And, you know, often this is dismissed, and the medical profession, the traditional medical profession, would boil it down to something like psychosis, for example. But Richard, you've been working with targeted individuals for some time, and we have Anna here who's going to share her personal experience. So Richard, please give everyone a brief overview of your experience and also what you've encountered working with individuals who've been targeted in this manner.
Sure, thanks, Maria. So Targeted Justice was founded back in 2017. I found that I was one of many tens of thousands of people here in the United States that had been targeted and placed into this program. The database is held by the FBI at the Terror Screening Center. It's hidden underneath or behind the watch list where the terror screening database, 97% of it is actually non-investigative subjects. And so we're finding that the government is deliberately placing these people into this human experimentation program, and that's certainly part of the targeting program. So there's a lot of technology that's been built up over the years for this program. The directed energy weapons are operated out of Schriever Space Force Base in Colorado. And the CIA certainly provides most, if not all, the funding.
Anna, you've also had experience as a targeted individual. Will you share a little bit with people?
Sure, thank you. Yes, I am from Puerto Rico, and during the course of many years, I had several surgeries. Some were not, some were mandatory, supposedly, and others were elective. And during the course of those surgeries, I was implanted with a huge, a very big head to toe W-band, and it's a wireless area body network. The sad part of it is that for example, my hip would, fall out of place, and I got x-rays. And even though now I can distinguish where the implants were, the radiologist would never report that I had all these artifacts inside of me, my intestines, my hips, everywhere. And the same happened with my head, my chest, everywhere. I can tell you that I want people to know that there is a way to beat the transhumanist agenda. I was implanted illegally, secretly, to destroy and obliterate me because I am a whistleblower and environmental attorney that was denouncing environmental crimes happening in Puerto Rico. So I was telling too many inconvenient truths. And with the grace of God, I am here, and I was able to, defeat them because I filed a lawsuit on behalf of Targeted Justice to end the targeted individual program, and we're currently in the Fifth Circuit, waiting for oral arguments.
Well, that's amazing news, and very, offers a lot of hope, Anna. I'm interested to know, you said implanted against your will. So how did you come to know that this was the case? And how did you said implanted with the wireless body area network. What do you mean by that?
Okay, well, if you can see in some of Targeted Justice has done the testing with a megaphone that detects where you have implants all over your body, and depending on the frequency, you can tell when is the cable and when is it's a very rudimentary way and accessible, freely accessible for people to get it. When I first found out I was a targeted individual, because somebody from the United States, Puerto Rico being an island, information gets filtered. So even though I was pretty well read and I kept up, with the news, I didn't know about the targeted individual program. So it was a person in the United States, when I told her what was happening to me, she said, "Oh my God, you're targeted." And then I started reading about it, and I found out that a lot of them get implanted. So I got all the x-rays I have gotten throughout the years, and I started looking in the internet. In fact, there was a webpage called radiology.com that no longer exists, that I would be looking in there and comparing the x-rays. And that's when I started detecting that there were things in my x-rays that were not supposed to be there.
And what did they look like?
Well, I have one huge one. Dr. Anna is going to show you. I have a huge one in the middle of my brain. I have little ones on top of my skull. I have a rectangle and what seems to be like a belt around my chest. I have what seems to be like a ball, and excuse my lack of medical language because I'm an attorney, right? And no radiologist has been willing to tell me the truth about the studies they did on me. I have like a ball here in the heart. I have some little circles. You can detect the little circles in my intestines. I have a rod up my genital area, and I have like a wire down my spinal cord, like in the hole, the spinal cord thing. And that one was really interesting because I got electronic whipping 3 times in Puerto Rico. Like I was walking, and first was in the parking lot of a supermarket, the other was in the post office, but the third one was in a store where there was nobody else but the guy that did it and myself. And I felt that it's literally a whipping, an electrocution of my, and I went in there and I took a picture of the guy. I was like 10 feet away, and I said, just why don't you come and slap me in the face? Come and slap me. And I start filing with the police reports. I filed with the police. I badgered the policeman, and they never did the electronic whipping on me ever again. But you can see a long wire going down my spine. So I try not to think much about it because, and this is what I was sharing with Dr. Anna prior to the show starting, I don't want to take them out right now. I don't want to have them removed because there is such a thing as a chain of custody. And I risk, if I get all of this stuff removed, for example, they put in my feet, I love high heels. They put some in my feet so I cannot tolerate high heels anymore. And I will drop things from my hands. So the thing is, if I get them removed now, well, I risk losing them. So I see my body as a vault where I am going to keep them until we shut down this program, because I want to hold responsible every person that put each one of those things inside of me.
Well, that's certainly an extraordinary story, Anna, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. What you're talking about is something physically being implanted during a surgery, if I understand. But Richard, there's a lot of people who experience similar sensations, if you will, to what Anna's just described, who have not had anything implanted during surgery. What's your experience been, I guess, personal and with the individuals that you work with?
Well, we have had, you are correct, Marie. We've had both stories. We've had stories where people have unexplained implants, have never been into surgery or even into a dentist chair and put under. And we cannot explain how these implants got into them. It's very strange. And then we also have examples of cases where people went in for elective surgery and it was supposed to be a 2-hour surgery, and 7 hours later, they come out of it with things that they don't understand and can't explain. So we don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, really.
How do they know that there's implants in them? Is this through X-rays and other testing? What testing are they using?
Yes, X-rays. They'll go in for, maybe they twisted an ankle or something and get an X-ray of their ankle, and there's a clear foreign object near the ankle, and they're like, what is that and how did that get there? A very common story. We've had, of course, the megaphone, which Dr. Anna, I think, is going to address a little later on, but the megaphone is able to detect many of these, and because it only costs $15, it's available to the general public, and it's a very simple test that you can do, and we've got more information on that on our website and in our newsletter.
Great. Well, we will get into that. My concern is growing because I'm speaking to individuals, and by the way, I heard a story some time ago. I can't remember where I watched it, but it was an individual who'd had these implants, and the government were not. Every time they went to obtain their X-rays, they'd be swapped out with someone else's, and there was always some sort of debacle associated with obtaining their own scans. And it seems like this is a very sophisticated program. But my concerns are growing in the area of people who may not actually physically have something implanted, and this, new wave of technology that Dr. Anna's been investigating, of nanotechnology forming structures inside of individuals and what that's going to be able to achieve. I just want to bring up from your Substack, Dr. Anna, this is just yesterday I shared this fluorescent orange face tattoo under UV light in C19 vaccinated and Eye of Horus phenomenon, a human limbic system's being altered for behavior modification. This is a person who received, I believe, 3 injections, and I think it was Moderna, and this is what's showing up under UV light for this person. How concerned are you, Dr. Mahicha, that the technology that's sort of now been spread throughout humanity that isn't, you don't need a surgical implant. How concerned are you that they will be able to create this phenomenon through this technology as well? These symptoms and torture, I mean.
So the literature clearly states that hydrogels, which are clearly part of the C19 vaccination programs, and polymers are now able to be encrypted. They can be programmed like a memory. They can store emotions. This was just recently published to Nanowork, one of the major nanotechnology websites, and I had written an article about that. So clearly the technology is evolving, because what I believe is that the targeted individuals were the beta testing, the initial testing to see for the last 20 years or so, how people would behave and how to use this technology. And now we have this next step of surveillance under the skin, where we have self-assembling nanotechnology. We're being sprayed with the building blocks from via geoengineering. It's in our food supply. It is in the drinking water, and it uses the building blocks from the body to assemble itself and create structures like what you see behind me here, which I believe is actually bidirectional telemetry, because particularly the micro robots that I've seen, those are used for WeBan, exactly what Anna Toledo was explaining, which is, it's biosensing, but then it can be affected. And this is what I see in my clinical practice, where even the unvaccinated, I see vaccine injury in the unvaccinated, and many of them have phenomenon of hearing, dark thoughts that they never heard before, or being extremely depressed or anxious when that was never an issue. So people don't just get psychotic overnight for no reason, okay? And I think it's very, very important to understand that for those doctors who kind of say, oh, these people are crazy or they are psychotic. Well, that's not how psychiatric medicine works. You don't just all of a sudden go psychotic at age 50 when you've been very stable and successful for your entire life.
Yes, I think that, when you look at something like near-death experiences, for example, it's a widespread enough phenomenon that people have genuinely looked at it from a scientific experience. And I think that this phenomenon of people experiencing voice to skull and, this whipping that you spoke about, Anna, I've heard of things like this. In fact, I was recently interviewed an individual who, since receiving the COVID injections, reports that she has not felt the same. This individual's encounter or experience, she described that she started to not feel right after the injection. No prior knowledge of anything to do with nanotechnology or synthetic biology. Didn't really know that anti-vaxxers even existed, comes from a family of doctors or with a health background that really just trusted the science always. That was the way that they lived their lives. And then, spent around 6 years practicing meditation. So she said to me she's a very self-aware individual. And 2 months after the injection, she reports that she started feeling like she was being hijacked by an artificial general intelligence. That's what she describes it as, AGI. She says that she goes into these hyper-focused states where she senses that she's being programmed. She reports that she has a sensation of a cluster of nanodots in her eye, where her eye is being forced to look at certain things as though the technology that's inside of her wants to information gather. She reports having control over her movement. She no longer has organic movement. She cannot feel the backside of her body. And she reports that there is almost like a visor where she sees a technological version, if you will, in front of her that creates a mixed reality experience, which is almost like a projection from this cluster of nanodots. Now, this is an extreme example of where I think potentially they want this technology to go. Dr. Anna, you would have seen in all of their publications that they say, we're going to get to the days where you can turn on the television and control it with your brain. And so it begs the question, are they experimenting on people right now to get us to that point? So a lot of people would see that and think that's absolutely far-fetched. It's not possible. Dr. Mahaisha, I want to start with you because I know that you've read the literature that you know, in relation to what they want to achieve with this nanotech and this merge of human beings with synthetic biology. What are your thoughts on this particular case?
So what's interesting is that certainly people who are in the field have discussed similar things, especially, for example, the screen, so say a technological, genius in the field by the name, I believe, Hirschman. But in regards to this, I believe that there is a potential that this can be achieved, because when you have the brain-computer interface with, for example, Neuralink, there's really no telling to what is possible. And I think that what is important is that people are always experimented upon, and then later on things are being rolled out further. I've heard similar stories in MK Ultra survivors who clearly are saying that their brain is being accessed and that they are part of actually a sort of a mixed reality, for example, in their dream state, etc. So I think that reality is a lot stranger of what we even think. From our perspective and from my medical perspective, what is important is to document what we can show objectively, and then basically allow people to make up their own mind and start to broaden the conversation about, are these people all crazy? Or if the transhumanists are telling us, they want to create cyborgs out of us, and people are feeling like they're transformed into cyborgs, then maybe there could be something to it. It is the scientific investigation that will ultimately lead us to answers.
Richard, what are your thoughts on this case?
Well, it is an unusual case, and it's not an area that targeted justice has delved into. So from sort of a human biology standpoint, I would have to defer to Dr. Anna. But from more of a technology point of view, what we're finding is this is an example of one of those things. Was this done during surgery? Was this sprayed on? Does the person have any recollection of where and when it might have been applied? That's part of the documentation process. And because this is so new, this particular example is unusual and something that we would certainly need more documentation on. What's odd is we've been tracking the new subscribers at Targeted Justice, and we're averaging about 1,000 new subscribers a month. We found just today that 74% of our subscribers are over age 55, and only 6% are under age 35. And you would think that given the technological access for the younger generation, that would be reversed. But yet we're seeing the most of these experimentation is being done on older people. We don't know why. We also know that more than 60% is being done on women as opposed to men. Again, that just brings up more questions. So it's unusual.
It's interesting. I wonder whether it has to do with the suggestibility of women. I don't know. It's definitely interesting figures. Anna, I want to get your thoughts on this case before we move into your presentation, because do you see any parallels between anything that you've experienced or those that that have been targeted as well?
Yeah, she certainly sounds like a TI that we have here in Texas. She's close to Dallas, and she had been targeted for a while. And she said that after she got the Moderna shot, that's 2 weeks later, she started hearing her V2K. Her V2K is so atrocious. She was even thinking, she could move to Russia and to make it go away. But, we know that that's not the case, because he knows how the technology works. But the truth is that a lot of people say that, like with the directed energy weapons, they don't need the technology inside of you. But I think that the technology facilitates things that, I'm not a scientist, that are limited with the directed energy weapons. We have TIs that have forced speech, that they say, I didn't want to say that, but but the technology made me say it. And the same moving limbs and the same driving. Some people have problems holding their wheel and driving, some targeted individuals, and this is very, very scary for them. So we are just grateful. You know, Dr. Anna is a beacon of hope for us, I say for humanity, but particularly for targeted individuals and vaccinated people, because she is delving into a terrain that not many people, she's got the courage that not many people have, into, you know, calling a spade and investigating what is that these powerful people are doing to experiment, not just with targeted individuals, but with humanity.
I have to agree. Absolutely agree. She's certainly been leading the way. Dr. Mahitra, I just saw Greg Reese did another report on your findings. You know, whenever anyone is talking about the research into this area, you're mentioned, and it's because of your tireless work. I can't keep up with, you know, all of your research, so we're very grateful for that. Richard, I want to ask you, I don't know if you cover this off in the presentation, because I do want to get to that. You mentioned before where this program is run out of. You mentioned Colorado specifically. Are you saying that that's the only hub, or just in the United States?
Well, what we found is our research continued to drive us back to Schriever Base, just outside of Colorado Springs. It's the largest satellite operations facility in the world. Roughly, or more than 8,000 employees work there on a 24-hour schedule. The base is a deep underground military base. It has multiple access via deep underground tunnels, and fully funded for many years by the CIA under the black budget. Some of the directed energy weapons are certainly controlled from this facility, although they may have backup facilities as well. And we've had at least one expert, Dr. Bill Deagle, who actually visited this base back in the 1990s, and we've got a 5-minute video where he describes what he saw in this underground facility and said it's very impressive. So, but this is where the weapons are controlled from. And, you know, we want to highlight that. Targeted Justice has been to the base to protest and try to make most of the employees that may not have top secret clearances aware of what's actually going on at the base. So we need to expose that further.
Well, absolutely. I'd be interested in viewing that video. Well, I think you have some things to present. Let's move to that part of this, and then we'll, you know, discuss the information.
Okay, so I'm going to go through these very quickly, and anybody that wants to stop and read them thoroughly can certainly do that. So my background, I have a master's in mechanical engineering from Stanford, previously worked at NASA, and I have a website with many free ebooks and lots of free information at ourlighthouse.com. One of the things that we try to emphasize at Targeted Justice is some of the overall, the big picture view. Literally everyone in the United States and certainly in Australia is being tracked 24 hours a day. They know your exact GPS location and coordinates of the top of your head. And we tested it many times on many different people. It's very real. These GPS tracking satellites were built by Lockheed Martin and Boeing, and there's at least 30 of them in orbit. And there are 4 satellites at all times that can see the top of your head and provide within half an inch the exact coordinates of where you're located. Everyone is being tracked. This is how the tracking is done. If you follow 1, 2, 3, 4 here, this is an example of a Lockheed GPS satellite, and it bounces what's known as a scalar microwave beam off the top back part of your head to keep track of you. That signal at the speed of light is sent to Schriever Space Force Base, and the supercomputer there can transfer that to a cell tower where subliminal messages are directed at your head 24 hours a day. This is what we have tried to explain is responsible for the Trump derangement syndrome, the gender dysphoria, the panic buying of certain products. That this is how it's being done, is through subliminal messaging from cell towers. This is an important slide, Maria, because it talks about how the database is held for all of these non-consensual human experimentation subjects. The FBI calls them non-investigative subjects. It's 97% of the TSDB. It's on the same, it's under the same list, large-scale list as the watch list. but we refer to it as the blacklist because it contains different categories. And we encourage others to look it up. This is a big part of what our lawsuit is here in Texas right now.
So where have you identified that these categories exist in their database?
The Office of the Inspector General, which is part of the Department of Justice, has provided this data over numerous audits in many years.
Wow.
So we basically took the information from them. This is their information that we're quoting here. This is, we have dozens of pictures on our website at this URL right here, microwave burns. This is a woman lived in Arizona for many years, has been microwave burned within a matter of seconds more than 20 times. She's a targeted individual. This is a woman in New York City that gets her legs burned on a daily basis. It is literally torture. This is a woman in Germany, got sudden microwave burns. It appears to have come from a satellite. These are just common examples, and this has been going on for many years. So this is not new technology. This is old technology. So we encourage people to go to our website and look up more of these burns that are quite real and happening in their country as well. This is kind of an overview of the Targeted Individual Program. It shows that how new targeted individuals are inducted. This is done under the FBI and the National Counterterrorism Center. The gang stalking is run through the DHS and the FBI. We've got organizations such as InfraGard and Citizen Corps and local police that are involved in it, not just in the United States, but also in countries such as Australia and the UK. So it's a global program with more than 60 countries involved.
Do you know who's involved in Australia?
It's a
Out of interest.
Yes, you have a counterterrorism center, and that is the one that does, at least what they do is the organized stalking part of it, because the directed energy weapons come from Colorado.
Can you please explain for people that aren't familiar with the term gang stalking what that is?
Certainly. It's a more appropriate term would probably be organized stalking, but people perceive it as gangs. Quite literally, there are many people that are involved. Often it's their neighbors or other people that live in their community or in the apartment next door to them. And it involves constant harassment, constant surveillance, taking pictures of you, leaving threatening messages, house break-ins. We've got an entire, under our website at targetedjustice.com, we've got a sub-tab called gang stalking, and there's a gang stalking training manual that was apparently written by British intelligence agents many years ago. And we've got a copy of that manual that anyone can download and read, and you'll see many examples of how they train people to be involved in this covert activity without getting caught. And so it's very disturbing that our own government would organize and pursue such a policy. It actually goes back as far as post-World War II in Germany, where the secret police developed some of these methods. Now the FBI and the CIA have kind of pumped them up on steroids, and we're seeing both the directed energy weapons and this organized stalking. So it's very real.
Richard, my understanding. Oh, sorry, go on, Anna, and I'll go on.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify for you that the people that engage in these activities, they think they're patriots. Many of them think they're doing a right thing because they're told that we are terrorists, that we're criminals. Many men are told that they're pedophiles, or women too. So these people are like vigilantes taking the law into their own hands, trying to make people unwelcome, rejected by society. But in their minds, they think that the persons that they're targeting and stalking are real criminals, except that, you know, under our constitutional system, you have to have an accusation, a criminal process, and a sentence, a judgment and a sentencing. And they are taking, you know, justice into their own hands, pretty much trying to ostracize from society law-abiding citizens that have absolutely nothing to do with terrorism, as has been admitted, and I'll explain to you later, by the FBI.
Yes, my understanding is that the aim really is, and I guess for people that don't really understand how this works, the aim really is to make that individual feel crazy, to make that individual sound crazy to those around them. You know, it's a very sophisticated, targeted way of isolating someone from society so that it somehow discredits what they're actually experiencing. It really goes hand in hand with the other forms of targeting for this reason.
That's correct, Maria. And you'll see in our chart here that the implants that Anna has described are actually part of this human experimentation and targeting program. So we're well aware of it. We've been following this for many years. We've identified the government agencies that are leading this effort. Much of the funding for these illegal implants comes from DARPA, and the NIH has a large organization with thousands of people that are developing these new implants. They openly admit to it.
So these people that you've identified here, how have you managed to name those responsible? Is that through the process through the courts, or how do you know that these people are the ones that should be on this list?
Because the audit, in the case of the FBI and the Department of Justice, we actually have their own audits admitting to doing this. They've literally confessed to doing this.
Right.
In the example of much of this chain of command, the way we tracked them down was by following the money. Where did the NIH get the money to develop these implants that are very secretive and that they're not supposed to release? And we tracked it down to DARPA. Well, where did DARPA get the money? Under the black budget, which comes from the CIA. And that's a quote from Ed Snowden. So we know where we just follow the money to find out who's behind this and where the org chart, the hierarchy exists. So yeah, it's not difficult to find. Just follow the money. So next slide, very quickly. This describes how cell towers have been weaponized. It certainly exists in Australia as well. The key you want to look for is these 4 panel antennas right in a row. These are 4G antennas. 5G, you'll see 5G sometime inserted in place of one of these, but those 4 antennas in a row is what's required to create a weapon. And by manipulating the beam, it's called digital beamforming, takes 4 of these panel antennas, and by working together, they sort of mold, almost like clay, this invisible microwave beam that can be fired very accurate for many miles. So we've encouraged TIs to go to a website called antennasearch.com, where they can look for all the antennas around them that might be weaponized. And these microwave beams can literally go through many houses or buildings before it hits you. And so TIs jump to the conclusion that their neighbor has a weapon, and it's just not true. It takes a huge amount of electricity, and the majority of these attacks are done from cell towers, although some of them are done from satellites as well.
Interesting.
This is a view inside the very impressive deep underground base at Schriever. It was first built back in the 1980s under Reagan's Star Wars program. And it's a very impressive complex. I encourage folks to watch Bill Deagle's 5-minute video about his experience at Schriever Base. Very impressive. We're going to let Dr. Anna talk about this, but we're encouraging folks, both targeted individuals and the general public, to spend $15 on a megaphone and check yourself. It's easy to do. It's not a perfect method. No medical device is, but it will help you identify where you possibly have artifacts or implants in your body. So we strongly encourage it because the cost is so low.
Dr. Anna, did you want to discuss this?
Actually, I think that if Richard wants to kind of demonstrate it real quick and just kind of talk about his experience, that would be great. I can show some of the implants that we found through this method, but please go ahead, Richard.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anna. So Dr. Anna is correct. This is just one method. There are also these electric massager pens that are about the size of a screwdriver that can be used to confirm a detection. And then, of course, X-rays and ultrasound can be further used to confirm that a foreign object is actually there. But I have one that's very noticeable on my neck. And
if it's still there.
So you see it detects electromagnetic fields. So this particular implant, and I don't know how I got there. There's no incision mark there, but it clearly is detecting a radio frequency field that's sitting there. So that's just one example.
And you were not aware, Richard, before that you had anything there?
No, I was not. So I have tried to do a thorough scan, but like most TIs, I found so many spots. I'm not sure. I would like to get ultrasounds or X-rays done to for sure identify those things that maybe I could get removed. It's disturbing to find out how many spots in your body might contain a foreign object.
Is there any other reason why this would occur? Why a megaphone would behave in this manner?
Well, the megaphone is just an inexpensive. It detects electromagnetic fields, so it's not magic. It's just simple science. It's got a round magnet in there with circular wires and a diaphragm. It does act as an amplifier, but in this case, it's simply detecting electromagnetic fields, and the acoustic, the natural resonant frequency of that particular implant will generate a signal and get amplified that obviously we can hear. So Anna, for example, we did in some prior demonstrations showing where she's got very clear foreign objects that can be seen near the top of her head, as well as one that's very deep within the brain. It very easily detects the ones that are close to the surface. So it's unusual that she has both X-rays and the megaphone confirming the detection that something is emitting a or an electromagnetic field in the same location as these white spots in her brain.
Wow.
And the way to kind of think about it, because there's so many people who are critical, for example, about this, is this can be an initial testing that then can lead to further investigation, including ultrasound and X-rays. It doesn't mean that just because you have a sound signal that you're absolutely implanted. You have to check, and that also is in the broader context of if you have symptoms of being, targeted, etc. Then it's at least a very cheap way to do a screening test.
Well, this is the way that I see it. We saw all of those videos of people experiencing magnetism following their COVID injections, forks and knives sticking to their arms, and they thought it was funny, and they were posting videos on the internet, oh, look, I got a fork sticking to me. I even know of people in person who had that phenomenon. It was a very primitive way of testing whether they have magnetism or not. But had they paid attention to those early warning signs, perhaps they wouldn't have gone back and gotten a booster, or gone back and, or experienced sudden death or myocarditis. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Even though some tests may seem primitive to people, they can be an early indicator, and we shouldn't just dismiss them. In my opinion, the topic of, even though, some of what we're discussing in the realm of nanotechnology is a little bit different to what you and Anna are talking about, Richard, in terms of implantable, devices, although I note that you said not all have been implanted, but even though it is a bit different, I don't think it is. I think that this is the more advanced version of what was initially done through implants, surgical implants, and that now they've evolved from that. This is what I'm trying to say. I mean, this is my theory. I can't prove it, but all signs are pointing in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. We Dr. Anna has been emphasizing we need more tests. This is a simple screening test that anybody can do, and if you get results, then you want to ask why. Let's go to the next step. What else can you do to confirm that? We try to cover that at Targeted Justice in our newsletter at targetedjustice.substack.com, free subscription. And Dr. Anna has done amazing research to confirm some of this. Certainly the blood work, where we're seeing graphene that can create an electromagnetic field. That's certainly one possible source. So an early scan is just going to basically tell you, hey, I need to look further into this.
Dr. Mahachi, you've got something you want to show us as well?
Okay, wonderful. So what I want to explain a bit is that there have been very esteemed scientists who looked at this phenomenon and actually investigated it. One of which was Dr. Hildegard Sterninger, who, for example, in 2012 had this case where somebody was affected by a directed energy weapon into the ear canal and then continued to have headaches. And it turns out that she then had screening tests done, medical screening testing, and a meningioma was found. And what was interesting was that after the surgery, this material was then sent for investigation for advanced nanomaterial analysis. And it turns out that that also some of the earwax of this individual through the access point of where this directed energy weapon hit was also then analyzed. And it turns out that number one, the contents of these materials were graphite, which is a sister to graphene, as well as silicon, sulfur, and an amide polymer. So polyamides is exactly the chemical signatures that Clifford Carnicum and I have found in the vaccinated and then in the unvaccinated from shedding when we were investigating this issue of the nanotechnology. And there were literally these parallels between the self-assembling nanotechnology called Morgellons, which is actually a form of advanced nanotechnology that's used for biosensing application, and what we were seeing from after the shots. The other thing, this meningioma was taken out, and they couldn't cut it with regular measures. They needed a diamond saw. So this was just unbelievable because regular tissue, you would absolutely be able to cut through, and it was a hydroxyapatite and this protein polymer. And the reason why this is important is because I've investigated these self-assembling polymers, and it turns out that there are proteins that are polyamides, which are nylon, Kevlar, and spider silk, which is many times stronger than steel. And it's used in the military for applications as well as now for biosensing applications. So I certainly, have found, particularly in the military literature, correlations with this. So the conclusion of her investigation of these chips that were found, and I'll show you in a little bit another comparison, was this was used to control and monitor brain and body functions. That it was used to control and monitor the behavior of the individual, that it was sending and receiving verbal commands, and that it was stimulating neurons in the brain to manipulate them. It also could be used as a listening device for remote sensing and monitoring. And there was also a digital computer component to the device that was able to actually capture visual transmissions. So this was literally like a spying system, and there were many other applications. So I just want to tell people this paper was published in 2012. Okay, and we're saying, oh, this all of this advanced nanotechnology, self-assembly, oh, this is just all new. No, it's not new. And what I'm trying to say that the Morgellons aspect that has been deployed like more than 20 years ago. And again, these are reputable scientists who've done this investigation. This is an image comparison. So this is the graphite implanted microchip that was isolated also from this targeted individual. And then you can see here, this is 2022, Dr. David Nixon, who placed a drop of the Pfizer viral content under his dark field microscopy, and these microchips grew. And you can see the similarities here. Certainly, it made me question what are the correlations here. Here are more of the microchips that Dr. David Nixon found. And here is Dr. Anna Toledo's imaging from her brain chip that exactly over this area the megaphone is emitting a sound, and she actually had adequate, scientific evaluation, and you can see clearly that there is a chip here. She has another one that is a little bit higher, but I just want, again, for all of those naysayers who are saying, oh, the megaphone is nothing, it's just nonsense. Wait a minute, we have people where we are doing these tests, or they have done these tests, and then they have had medical evaluations, and they have implants showing that their etiology cannot be otherwise explained. This is very significant. And I want to just explain that the FBI and the CIA's, the intelligence agencies, have had a interest in mind control for a long time. Igor Smirnov was the founder of the Psychotechnology Research Institute in Russia, and he was contacted by the FBI in 1993 because he was an expert on subliminal manipulation against people's will. And what he said is that it is conceivable that some Russian Satan, or let's say Iranian, or any other Satan, as long as he has the appropriate means of finances, can inject himself into every conceivable computer network, every radio or television broadcast, without difficulty. And you can intercept the radio wave in the ether and then subliminally modulate every conceivable suggestion into it. And if it transpires over a long enough period of time, it accumulates in the heads of people. Eventually, they can be artificially manipulated with other additional measurements to do that which the perpetrator wants them to do. This is why this technology is rightfully feared. So let me just again pause here that in 1993, they were talking about what is possible by simply adding information to a radio wave frequency that could be then targeted to somebody's brain. And if you remember, Maria, I had shown with Clifford Carnicum that the vaccinated blood was extremely sensitive to 4 hertz. I've talked about this on your show, which is the extremely low frequency from HAARP, High Active Auroral Research Project, which can be used for mind control and DNA manipulation. But it turns out that our colleague, Dr. Len Baer, who is a targeted individual, and he's also part of Targeted Justice, he sent me his functional brain MRI scans, and he's also injected, COVID injected, and his functional MRI showed a 4 hertz continuous emission in his corpus callosum. So wait a minute, 4 hertz, that would only be, really traceable if somebody's in deep sleep. So he is being subliminally programmed while he is awake, and this correlates to the findings that Clifford Carnicum and I had. So here's this issue in regards to the injection. So there was a former DoD contractor who came to me by the name of Justin Coy, and he showed me this phenomenon that the injected are glowing under UV light. This is an individual who got 1 Moderna shot and 3 PCR shots. You can see absolutely nothing under regular light, okay? And now if the light is being turned off and the UV light is being turned on, you can see that this individual is glowing around the nose and the entire forehead. And this has been reproduced in many, many vaccinated individuals. And there was only one who didn't have the forehead glow and only had it around the nose. But he literally investigated dozens and dozens and dozens of people. And the way he found me, he actually came in with a UV light into my office and said, Dr. Mihalcea, I want you to look at this. And you can see this tattoo cannot be taken off. This is not from any dermatological disease. Here you can see very advanced forms in the ear. This isn't makeup. You cannot scrub it off with alcohol. You cannot remove it. It is a tattoo in the skin, okay?
Dr. Anna, I have so many questions. Does it move around, or once you shine the light, it just sort of stays in the same place?
It is in the skin, so it's a tattoo that stays in the same place. And what happens is literally the little tiny dots. So these are not milia or little, little pus pockets, but it's actually the texture of the skin. And the concern here is that either this is quantum dot technology, and for example, I've investigated Thermo Fisher. They have a dye that's called Calichine orange that actually is used for tracking and tracing of cells. And Thermo Fisher was a partner of Pfizer. Or what Justin Coy was concerned about is whether or not this is luciferase, because you can certainly know the Book of Revelation that said that they will be marked in their foreheads. So
Yes.
what is also interesting here, this is correlating to the work of Hildegard Steininger in 2008. After there was a pesticide being sprayed, there were individuals who had a fluorescent light on both sides of the iris. This is called the Eye of Horus phenomenon. And she determined that at that time, the military was actually investigating how to mass manipulate people's behavior via fear hormones, in particular fear. And so it turns out that smell and memory are being encoded in the same neurons. And she found that the people who were subjected to this nanotechnological spraying had these fluorescent dots in their eyes at that time. And it turns out when I showed this to Justin Coy, he said, "Oh my God, I've seen the same thing in the vaccinated. I'm going to show you a picture. This is why I'm showing this." And this is a way to manipulate the limbic system, which is the emotional aspect of the brain, and in which we can manipulate behavior. It has to do with your sense of smell, your vision, but ultimately it is very much who you are as a personality. I showed this to Todd Callender, and he said, "Oh my God, this makes so much sense. I see so many people in catatonic, unexplainable fear that have never had any issues with this stuff." And this is exactly what we've been seeing, what I've been seeing also from people from shedding, etc. So I believe that there's an aspect of it that is not just about tracking and tracing via the blue lights that are being installed everywhere, but also a emotional and mental manipulation.
If this was just luciferase and not quantum dot, for example, because people may say, "Oh, well, yes, it's in the injections, and luciferase is in a lot of different medications, and that's perfectly okay." My question is, why would you need something that's luminescent inside the COVID injections? If it was just luciferase, why would that be a problem?
Well, first of all, who consented to be glowing at night? Okay, and then this whole aspect of, okay, this is a tattoo in people's skin. I mean, if people are not up in arms about this, if they look at their own face, I mean, this is just horrendous. What if there was a genetic manipulation that now actually transcribes whatever produces the luminosity in our genome? Does this mean that all of us have been altered? Because I see it in people who've been subjected to shedding. It's just around the nose. And people will say, "Oh, this is makeup." No, this is in people who wear no makeup, nothing else on their skin. And again, you cannot remove it. So I think that this is very, very interesting. And whether or not it is quantum dot, it's an or not, it's an alteration of the human being that is just part of potentially this tracking and tracing mechanism. And it's an outrage that we're finding this in people.
Well, Dr. Anna, some time ago, I interviewed Hope and Tavon, and I'm talking early days, and they were showing me how they had been experimenting with quantum dot technology, making it, they'd been able to program it in mice to go to the tail or to the forehead to aggregate in that area. And I was saying, my goodness, this sounds like, Mark of the Beast, making some sort of a bioluminescent substance travel and aggregate in the forehead. And I said, are we going to start seeing this in humans? And, just yesterday when you published your article, I sent it off to Hope and Tavon because, there's something we were theorizing a couple of years ago where people called us absolutely nuts is happening now.
Absolutely. And what I want to explain about this Eye of Horus, so this is literally, like I said, in 2008, and these were nano and microsphere that apparently had a specific dye at that point. It was this fluorocyanoethylcyanide. And anyways, what I wanted to show people is, number one, here there is a connection to the Eye of Horus or Isis, and you know that everything that the Satanists that are involved in this transhumanist agenda, to them things are spiritual in nature. And I just want to mention this, that there's Egyptian symbiology or symbology that is being found in this particular mathematics. And then it says here, currently pheromone fear and infrared invisible dye marking is being applied to non-lethal weapon and Ryan control research and technology.
Wow.
So, certainly, so this was, again, published in 2008. These are the findings here. This was after the spraying in California, and you can see this fluorescent dye exactly like I just showed you from the COVID shots. And this is another interesting thing, because the people who exhibit this, which are, like I said, 99.99% of the vaccinated individuals that Justin Coy looked at, when they take a hot shower, these filaments come out of their skin. And he brought me these filaments in order to microscopically investigate them, which I did. But what I want to show here is these are exactly like Morgellons fibers. They attract to the biophotonic light of the human, and they are like this artificial intelligent life form. Exactly what I've been saying now, for 2 years, saying, look, there is a correlation between Morgellons. Here, a hair is being held to this thing, and you can see it is moving on its own as if artificially alive and conscious. And this is coming out of people's skin. So what you do is you take a hot shower, and then you take a UV light, and then you will see the orange glowing filaments coming out of your skin. And this is no longer just the Morgellons victims, but now also the COVID injected. And I think that we need to pay attention, because all along we've been saying, okay, self-assembling nanotechnological filaments that we're seeing in the blood are also showing up that are very similar to the Morgellons technology.
Dr. Mahaicha, is that from a vaccinated person? That's not a Morgellons victim.
Absolutely, a vaccinated individual. And he brought me a little plastic container of all kinds of these, because he's been checking all of the people who have this orange glow, and tells them, please take a hot shower, use UV light, and collect these filaments. And he's been getting this from these people. So what I'm saying is, literally, the phenomenon that we've described previously, that Morgellons is related, this is clearly an overlap that is, again, confirmation to everything that I've been talking about the last couple of years. And Morgellons, remember, was a plasmonic nanoantenna that could also genetically alter individual, as well as it was used for biosurveillance, because it developed the same type of similar microchips.
Well, Richard, I have a question for you, and this, goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, where, okay, Dr. Anna's saying that what we're seeing now is the result of the original Morgellons testing. They've gotten better at this nanotechnology and what they can do with it since Morgellons. And what we may be seeing now from targeted individuals is a much more advanced, targeting or advanced interaction with technology with these individuals. Would you agree? And what is your assessment? Have the symptoms and the things that people are experiencing that are contacting you changed since the COVID injections?
Well, we first started noticing, we had a number of TIs writing in beginning back in 2018 about the Morgellons. So we were aware that it was one aspect of this experimentation program. At that time, we had Dr. Edward Spencer, who was actually on our advisory board, a medical doctor who was probably one of the world's leading experts on Morgellons, and he's written about it. He had a practice in Northern California. Unfortunately, he's passed away a little while ago, but I encourage people to look him up on the internet. He did a number of tests with the Morgellons fibers, for example, testing the fibers up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit, and they did not burn. That doesn't sound like an ordinary organic substance. So although he wasn't able to identify what it was chemically composed of, he said, biologically, I'm not aware of anything in the human body that can withstand 900 degrees without heating or without destroying it. So he did give a number of talks to city councils in California and things like that. But clearly, the conclusion of his speeches were, we need more testing on this, and we need to understand what this is. But unfortunately, we still have medical doctors, particularly in the psychiatry and psychological fields, saying that people are just crazy, that these fibers just came off your coat, you're getting alarmed about nothing. And that is one of the areas here at Targeted Justice that the barriers that we're trying to take down, is make the psychological and psychiatric custodians aware that this is real phenomenon.
Well, again, when you have the transhumanists talking about what they want to achieve, and then you have people that are presenting with some synthetic materials and symptoms that correlate between what the transhumanists want to achieve and what they're experiencing. I mean, we've got to start taking this seriously, but we still have the problem of doctors not taking seriously the stuff that we're finding in the blood. And so, I just want to say publicly from my end, I'm actually trying to speak with the sort of freedom movement doctors and waking them up to this and exposing them to this research. Anna, I know that your court case is, you wanted to give people a bit of hope as well. Would you please do that for a moment?
Yes, but if you allow me, before we do that, I wanted to mention that we started with the V2K, right? And what you just talked about, doctors, it is reckless negligence for doctors not to keep up to date with technology. And when you tell someone that they're crazy because you don't want to even do a little reading into what Dr. Nixon or Dr. Mihalcha are doing, you are committing malpractice. And that's when they are depriving people of their freedom and putting them in the mental hospitals, calling them psychotic because they're hearing voices from the voice to skull that, you have textbooks about the microwave auditory effect. It's not fantastical. It's not invented. They are not crazy. So, it is reckless negligence. And until people start holding responsible those doctors that are so condescending to patients, because like Dr. Anna said, you don't develop schizophrenia at age 50. It's in the 20s, in the decade of the 20s for men and women that it happens. So they are intentionally looking the other way because it's, like I say, an inconvenient truth. They don't want to talk about it. Maybe it's because they're being blackmailed, they are being threatened, but the person that is suffering is the patient. And so patients have to hold them liable to their malpractice. Regarding, let me see if I can share with you, because I want to, as Richard said, most of the evidence that Targeted Justice has is based on FBI owns admissions, DOJ uncontroverted documents. We're not making up anything. And that's why even though over 300 lawsuits have been dismissed of targeted individuals that have not perhaps worded their claims in the correct terms and have been dismissed as fantastical by the courts, the truth is here. Okay, the legal initiative that Targeted Justice engaged in, we started on January 11th, 2023. The district court dismissed it, saying it was fantastical, even though 80% of the 125-page lawsuit is based on uncontroverted facts and documents that come from both FBI and DOJ. Right now, the program has got to be the largest crime against humanity going on, not just, again, 400,000 innocent Americans that have absolutely nothing to do with terrorism, but we estimated 6 million people around the world that are not only tortured with directed energy weapons, but also illegally implanted and also the object of psychological operations and gang stalking, as we mentioned before. This program comes from the infamous MK Ultra, which everybody knows that supposedly stopped after the church committee, but of course, since nobody went to jail, it never really stopped. Instead, it was merged with the COINTELPRO, which supposedly also stopped. And it's very dear to my heart because in Puerto Rico, over 74,000 people were persecuted with this Stasi-like, governmental conduct. And people eventually it was supposedly shut down. And Louis Freeh admitted before Congress that the FBI did operate a program that did tremendous destruction to many people, to the country, and that they did illegal things. But it never ended. What they did is they merged MK Ultra with COINTELPRO. Right now, our statistics tell us, and I did a form. I have over 2,000 people that replied to it because it is our goal to have access to the TSDB. I'll explain to you the categories of it and check the names of the people. It's important that people know it's not just targeted individuals. Our internal numbers say that for one targeted liberal, there are 5 targeted conservatives. This is a program that was going to be rolled out to the entire population because it's a way for mind control. They wanted to have control of the population through mind control. 2/3 of them are women. 62% have the B2K. Of those, 62%, over 65% are men. The 82%.
So more men experience voice to skull than women.
Yes, and my theory is not scientifically proven, but I think is that the purpose of this program is to make you go on your knees and ultimately commit suicide. Basically, give in to the control, give in to the experiment. And V2K is such an atrocious torture. It's 24/7. Some people have it very loud, some people have very low. But I, in my opinion, I think that the reason that there is overwhelming majority of men with V2K is because they are harder to dominate. Except that, there's people like me. I don't have V2K, and my honor and my respect goes to everybody that does and can live through it. 82% have artificial tinnitus that Richard didn't mention it, but it's a byproduct of the tracking, of the satellite tracking.
That's interesting considering how much tinnitus increases were reported following the COVID injections. This was one of the huge phenomenons that started happening very short after the initial rollouts.
So there might be a correlation there in terms of, the technology they put in there. I don't know, but the people that are tracked, they get the artificial tinnitus. And the national average, I was looking, and Dr. Mihalcha might correct me, but I think it's something between 7 to 14% of the population that naturally have tinnitus versus this 82% of our targeted individuals. The 67% of targeted individuals are unemployed. The doors are closed to their face versus, a national average of 5%, right? Something like that right now. 14% are homeless versus a 0.5% of the United States average. 85% report break-ins and 83% report directed energy weapons attacks. How scary does it get? This is what, when you talk about V2K, for example, we have generational TIs, and we have children as young as 3 years old that are hearing voices. They have implanted dreams, very violent and some in sexual nature. So American taxpayer money is being used. And this is, Maria, if I can just convey something, that is, American taxpayer money is being used to torture innocent civilians around the world, and this has got to stop. So that's why we're engaging on this.
And I want to say that the individual earlier told me that she was experiencing extremely violent sexual dreams and also experiencing sensations as a result of those sexual dreams, which felt like real sensations.
Well, this is very close to my heart because there are women that not necessarily have implants in their like genital area, and they've experienced rapes. What are like they describe them as a rape, and I'm not going to go into the details of it, but it's very, very painful, and it's done remotely. It's no touch torture. So when they tell a doctor, they have to be able to go to a doctor and say, this is real. And doctors, physicians have to understand and go into the literature, into these patents, and realize that this patient is not crazy. Because the frustration for, here's the thing, the United States has this American Violence Against Women Act, right? But what do you say about a rape that is initiated in Shrevers Air Force Base and a woman in Australia suffers it? And that's happening. And
that's just unbelievable. I mean, not unbelievable, but unbelievable to conceive that they would be doing this to people. And yet we know that it's absolutely happening.
They can't erase the evidence. You know, maybe they could try to erase it, like the 30,000 Hillary emails, but every time one of these weapons is fired, there's a log to it, and it is our hope that someday there'll be somebody with the courage in the Department of Justice to prosecute the treacherous United States Air Force employees doing these to people. And like I told you, they're doing it to children. They're implanting children with atrocious dreams, many of them of a sexual nature. And it's just aside from the fact that we do not know the long-term effects, you know, the non-kinetic brain injury, which is also known as Havana syndrome, doctors will have to one day study the impact on a developing brain on these children that are being attacked with these dreams and with the subliminal messaging and with the B2K, because it's all microwave weapons used on developing brains. So I'm going to go back to the legal part.
Sure.
The roster today for this torture program, and as Richard mentioned, 97% of the people in the terrorist screening database are in a secret list that is not the watch list. You hear people talk about the watch list, a watch list. Watch list only comprises known and suspected terrorists, but there is the Homeland Security Presidential Directive said that is what it was supposed to be for. It says individuals known or appropriately suspected to have been engaged in conduct constituting in preparation for, in aid of, or related to terrorism. Okay, so that they consolidated 14 terrorist lists from different agencies, and that's what the terrorist screening database only authorized. The problem is that in a statement under penalty of perjury, an FBI official of the Terrorist Screening Center admitted that the TSDB, the watch list, only contains the names of the known and suspected terrorists, which are handling codes 1 and 2. However, in that little footnote, they say additionally, there is information about people that are not categorized as known and suspected terrorists, and that they are not a threat to national security, and they are not screened as such. Because of the Department of Justice audit reports, we know that those two categories, which are handling codes 3 and 4, which is where the targeted individuals are, well, those comprise 97% of the terrorist screening database, which was only authorized for known and suspected terrorists. So right. What we have is that the majority of the people in the terrorist screening database are not associated in any way with terrorism.
That's a huge number. I mean, that it's almost like they create this. They created it in order to experiment, because most of their focus is on regular people.
Yes, and here's the thing. The reason why we know it's the experimental, well, we know for two reasons, because Richard can tell you how he found out. But here's the thing, that those people, those 97% people in the terrorist screening database, they are not to be told that they are there. When we travel, we don't encounter problems traveling. we are not warned that we are on any list because we're never supposed to find out. Okay,
Right.
so why do you have that hidden list there? And so we have Samuel Robinson, another terrorist screening center official, saying that the individuals that are placed in that are watch listing exceptions that must not be disclosed. So basically, he admits that people are placed there for secret criteria, and they are not considered known or suspected terrorists. This is the graph that came from one of their audit reports. That's where you have it, the handling codes 3 and handling code 4. And the important thing about this is that handling code 4 constitutes 75% of the targeted individuals. And it's the the very slight targeting. Handling code 3 are the people that know they're targeted. So what we know is that most targeted individuals don't even know that they're targeted. And in this juncture, I wanted to mention to you, there was an important case at the Supreme Court called TransUnion versus Ramirez, where it was a class action lawsuit of over 8,000 individuals that TransUnion had put their names in their credit reports as if they had been associated with the OFAC terrorist list. And then it had been sent to third parties. Well, only almost 2,000 people, their reports had been sent to third parties, and 6,300 were not. So the court said, well, the ones that were sent, those do have a cause of action. The problem here is that TransUnion said that that was a mistake, and it is not. What I believe is that these are people that are targeted individuals in handling codes 3 and 4, and by accident, TransUnion didn't know that they were not supposed to put them on the like an OFAC terrorist, flagged by OFAC.
I wanted to ask you just quickly, Anna, you said some people know they're targeted, some people don't. For the ones that know, do they know who's doing it to them? Is it always made known to them?
No, many people, the FBI is the one, and we have an Inspector General report saying that FBI makes, at least as it pertains to the United States, because Richard knows the international ones, it's ridiculous what they're doing, because it's like the FBI legal attaché sends a nomination, and they just process it and send it to the terrorist screening center. And that FBI field offices were nominating innocent Americans. You heard about the Christians hearing Latin Mass. You heard about Steve Friend saying that he was being pressured to classify as domestic terrorist people that were going to the parents' meetings. Well, this is what it's about. The FBI is hungry for categorizing people into domestic terrorism, because that, like Richard says, follow the money. The more people we have to watch over, the more budget we get. And that is why innocent Americans are being placed on this list. And sometimes the ones, when I didn't know I was targeted, well, I would wake up in the morning and I wasn't really, it took me 40 minutes to warm up my body, because throughout the night they're microwaving you. And one simple test that everybody can do at home is the cupping of the ears. You can cup your ears for 30 to 60 seconds in a very quiet place, and you will hear little pops. Those are the microwave pops. And it's just one way of knowing that, you are targeted. Many people know who nominated them, but who carries out the torture? It is the United States government. In the United States, we have the fusion centers that the policy is established by the Department of Homeland Security, and the fusion centers coordinate with Citizen Corps, and those people go out like vigilantes. FBI has the counterpart, InfraGard. They do surveillance, electronic surveillance. All of our emails, all of our phones, everything is under surveillance all the time. The Mataibi Twitter files, I am absolutely certain those were targeted individuals, because as you know, they weren't famous influencers. They were people that had 1,000, 2,000 followers. And I believe that they are targeted. So the atrocity of this is that what they wanted to attain is mind control of the population.
Well, you just said something so interesting there, Anna, and I want to quickly touch on it. because there was an interview that a gentleman just did with Tucker Carlson, and I shared it, and he was talking about the censorship, and I actually want to name him and give him credit because it was one of the most fantastic interviews that I'd seen in a while. Mike Benz. Okay, so he just explained the censorship complex to Tucker, and he was talking about how essentially they get away with this because they class everyone as a threat to democracy, right? And so, yes, those people are targeted. They would be on that list. They would be classed as a threat to democracy. Therefore, they have to be silenced. So every single one of those people that's classed as a threat to democracy who says, hey, maybe we shouldn't give these injections to people. They're killing humanity. Hey, maybe we don't need, every poison under the sun in a childhood vaccine. Hey, maybe we don't need genetically modified bananas. Just as an example, that individual is then not just at risk of censorship, but also at risk of the targeting program that you and Richard are describing.
That's exactly it. I listened to him twice because it was just so information, so much information in there. And the one thing he was missing from his speech was, and these people become targeted individuals because of their behavior in social media, they are tagged as problematic. Let's make their life miserable. And the way they do it is with slight little things. It starts very slight. And then if you become a real problem, it becomes, you go to handling code 3. But what he describes is exactly how I think they go about fishing for people that they're going to put on this program. Anybody who is a dissident, anybody who thinks different from what is in power right now will get targeted. That's why it's so important, this program, and people out there to just get the word out because it has got to stop. Let me finish here.
Sure.
People are labeled as suspected terrorists. Many people, you go to a place, they treat you really badly. This list is distributed in the United States to 18,000 law enforcement, 532 corporations of the biggest corporations, 1,400 organizations and 60 countries. Wherever you go, you cannot escape it. They will, for example, some of our targeted individuals, they cannot wire money through Western Union. I have had one person in our advisory board. I'm not going to say the store, but she ordered two beds from a store, an online store, and they refused to sell it to her because they said she was a security threat. They kicked her out of one of these short-term rentals, calling her a security threat after 6 days staying there. Okay, the lives of targeted individuals are affected in so many ways. What takes a normal person 15 minutes to do online takes us 2 hours. So
well, Anna, you talking, I was going to bring up banks, but I thought maybe it's not as relevant to this conversation. But in Australia, they have, I think it's actually a worldwide program called Know Your Customer, right? Where banks have been given a mandate to re-identify their customers. Now, in Australia, we've actually had a bank here tell someone that I know that this has to do with the digital ID and linking the person with, because there's new numbers on the back of the driver's license, and that's linked with your digital ID and so on and so forth. But my point is, when I went in to research Know Your Customer in Australia, it is actually often the bank is told to re-identify these people because they are a perceived threat. There's some sort of a database that identifies this person as a potential domestic terrorist, for example. So what you're talking about will absolutely extend to the general population through their banking as well. If they make things, it's really reminiscent of, I mean, this is next level social credit system. It's all interconnected is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. And here's the irony, because when you talk credit systems, social credit systems, you think of China. But this is happening in Australia. This is happening in America. It's happening in Europe, in supposedly places that are democratic. So it's all a hypocrisy. Richard here 3 days ago he had to go to 4 different ATMs because the ATM would not dispense money. When he pulled out his phone to take a video of the transaction, that's when it worked. You see,
Wow.
so you see that banks are colluding with this program and doing this kind of abuse on people. And if they don't want you to eat, you won't eat. And that's, you know, it's just very, very scary, because with a digital currency, they will absolutely control everything you do.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, if you are targeted, I tell you, you know, a simple online transaction, and that is if you are successful, that normally takes 15 minutes. It can take us 2 hours, or maybe we don't get to do it. Okay. So, and here's the private sector part of it is that there is a lot of, this program has become a financial money-making machine for private enterprise. There you have targeting officers in private corporations. Private corporations are deciding who gets who, and this goes with Ben's discourse, that he says it's private corporations that are getting to do the targeting of people, you know, the signaling of who goes against the narrative. Well, this is the same. You have targeting officers, and this is a real conflict of interest, because here's what happens. They get more money. The more people they target, the more people they get money paid for. But it doesn't mean that the people they're targeting are real terrorists. You see? The same with, I don't know if you saw this pyramid of far-right radicalization. You have there a lot of very well-known organizations. This is DHS donated $340,000 in a grant to University of Dayton that did this presentation, this program. And they did this, you know, here you have, you know, what they consider, and on the top you have what they consider terrorists, you know? So it is people
But that's just an anime cartoon. I'm not.
Yeah, anime cartoon here, but here you see this came from University of Dayton, and you can see who for them, you see, from activists to radicals to terrorists, who is in the pyramid of far-right radicalization.
Yes.
These
no,
are
I understand. I'm just interested. Why did you superimpose the anime, or did they actually put an anime photo there?
No, I got this from the internet. I don't know. I got it from the internet, because the Department of Homeland Security is donating money everywhere to get private enterprise and universities engaged in this program of Stasi, converting society into a Stasi state.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, absolutely. That's and this education through the universities is just turning people into mindless drones that would watch, you know, these people would watch something like this and think that we belong in that pyramid. It's absolutely astounding to me how many people have been brainwashed by the so-called education system, which is just indoctrination camps for the future drone society.
Absolutely. And the thing is that they refuse, it's part of the subliminal messaging, I think, that Richard was talking about. You know, they have been so brainwashed into not listening to anything but, you know, this indoctrination. Well, like I mentioned before, hundreds of cases have been dismissed, and they have many filed by targeted individuals, and they have many things in common. These are pro se plaintiffs that many of them are dismissed because they file in forma pauperis, and they are dismissed in unpublished opinions because they don't really organize. They don't really know who is doing it. We know who is doing it. It's DHS on the ground and CIA and Space Force with the directed energy weapons. And so the courts use this language of fantastical, delusional, implausible. However, never are sanctions imposed for frivolous filings. So that, you know, if you only had one case, 2 cases, you would say fantastical. But when you are dismissing 300 cases throughout the entire federal judiciary system, somebody has to raise an eyebrow and say, wait a minute, something is happening, because after 2003, we've had 300 of these cases, and they're pretty much saying the same thing. We filed TJV Garland, and it's based, as we have said before, we seek a national injunction based on official documents generated by the Department of Justice and the FBI, seeking to end with handling codes 3 and 4, which is the roster for the experimental program, special access program known as a targeted individual program. It's, you know, nobody should be, no innocent civilian should be on a terrorist list under secret criteria. It's unconstitutional. This is very interesting. The former director of the Terrorist Screening Center retired within 2 weeks of us filing the lawsuit. And with you know, over 2,000 forms and surveys that I did, 57% of the people that report themselves as being targeted say, I mean, 43% say that it was after 2017, which is when he was in place. So 43% of the people were targeted from 2017 in 6 years, and 57% from 2003 to 2017. So that tells you how busy was Mr. Cable placing innocent people on this terrorist database. And then he, within 2 weeks of the lawsuit, he retired. Our goal is, you know, no names, no target. When we eliminate handling codes 3 and 4, the targeting program ends. You know, we have pending the oral argument because the briefing has finished. There's also the oral argument of another important case, Kovac v. Ray, which is against the watch list. We have the decision in FBI versus B3rWqwMMPrqD, which was argued on January 8th. That one is really important. There's also the Congress is starting to pay attention. The Peters Committee came out with a report in December saying that, you know, mislabeled as a threat. And then there's Karula versus Garland. Karula is a mayor in Pleasant Park, New Jersey, who was denied entry to the White House because he's supposedly on the terrorist list. So he, along around 18 other people, filed a new lawsuit. And the interesting thing about this one is that this one is not just about the watch list, which is handling codes 1 and 2. Rather, it includes the entire terrorist screening database, because they recognize there are people that, even though they are removed from the watch list and are allowed to travel, they remain in the database.
Yes.
And so that's what we're waiting for, the oral arguments to be held before the Fifth Circuit.
Well, I'm certainly incredibly encouraged to see all of this is happening. I suppose I want to direct people to targetedjustice.com for more information. Are you looking for to connect with more individuals? You know, where can they go? Are you done with your presentation, by the way, Anna?
Yes, I'm done. I did want to tell you, we do have an Australia group, Australasia group. Yes. Yeah, we have an Australasia group in targetedjustice.com. We have the information, but also in our Substack newsletter, which is free. Every Tuesday, we publish the information. We know that in Australia, there's a lot of targeted individuals, and many of them are even afraid to speak because they don't want to be called crazy. These conference calls that we carry out are sometimes the only opportunity that people have to speak with like-minded people and victims that are going through the same. So yes, certainly I even if you're not targeted, you should subscribe to our Substack newsletter, because we are publishing information that is of relevance, particularly to conservative people that may become targeted just because of the way they think.
Everyone can visit substack.com/@targetedjustice, or just type in Targeted Justice Substack into Google and you will find the Targeted Justice newsletter. You can subscribe there and you will see all of these resources that Richard and Anna have been talking about today. What else did you want to mention? You mentioned something about Australia, Richard.
Yes, we have a very graceful woman named Helene in Australia that's been very helpful to Targeted Justice. She has a podcast, I believe, on either Fridays or Saturdays. She's got a pretty good following in Australia and New Zealand. And so we want to raise awareness about it. She's been very helpful in expanding our reach into Australia and New Zealand.
Well, that's really wonderful. And, you know, Anna, I'm very encouraged by you, because despite everything that you've been through and the mounting evidence that you have of what's being done to you. You're advocating for others. You are pushing forward, taking legal action. I mean, this is just such important work that you're doing. You know, just circling back to what I said earlier about the advances of this program. You know, some of the things we mentioned, like the Know Your Customer being put on this, you know, dangerous, potentially dangerous list, a terrorist list. Mums at school board meetings being classed as terrorists. I mean, the more people that are added to this list, the more people that could potentially be tortured, experience voice to skull, and you know, all sorts of other forms of torture that we've highlighted in this interview today. So we absolutely do have to get this program stopped, and I'm really grateful for the both of you. Dr. Mahicha, what did you want to say in closing?
That people need to pay attention, because what has been presented today is really the dystopian future unless we stop these transhumanists, because they want to surveil and track everyone and be able to control and potentially harm any dissident on Earth for total Orwellian culture. So I think it's important to take this serious. I also want to ask people, I'm an advisory board member for Targeted Justice. Their work is incredible. The legal actions do take money. If you are able to donate to this cause to support Targeted Justice, we would certainly appreciate you helping the cause. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can do that. I'll just quickly bring that up. If you go to targetedjustice.com and hover over the home button, you can actually find the donate button there. Richard and Anna, in closing, your comments.
Sure. Thank you, Maria. Yeah, free subscriptions to our newsletter, targetedjustice.substack.com. Lots of helpful information. If you think you might be targeted, there's a number of things that you can do to research that further. Also, our website is a treasure trove of information, all free, targetedjustice.com.
In closing, I want to thank you, Maria, for this great opportunity. And to the targeted individuals out there, I just want to say that this program can only be survived, and this is just my personal opinion, with the power of God. I am a walking miracle. The things that they put inside of me were to take absolute control, physical, mental control of me, and I didn't let it happen because God didn't let it happen. So don't obsess over what you have over your body. Just learn to live with it, and be certain that we are going to shut down this evil program, and that, you know, justice will be there for all of us one day. So just be hopeful and trust God more than anything.
Amen. Well, I'm so grateful for all of you and your time today, and all of your work. Again, I will put all of the links that are helpful in the description below, where people can, you know, contact and really just sort of get together, because I think that the more evidence that we have of what's going on, the better. So thank you all for your work. Dr. Mahicha, really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Are you using your phone, or is it using you? In 2020, a team of technologists, designers, and creatives working within the freedom movement found evidence that phones are listening to our conversations, tracking our movements, and targeting us with ads. They knew they needed to do something to protect their communities, and they began researching. Soon, they had put together a comprehensive privacy phone solution that does more than normal phones without tracking you. Above Phone was born. Today, thousands of people are using Above Phone. By default, there's no logins, no advertisements, and zero connections to big tech. It works with any cell service anywhere on Earth, and you can keep your number. Download your favorite apps privately, or unlock a world of new private apps with more features. Secure hardware protects you, and enhanced software gives you total control over your microphone, camera, sensors, and apps. We're excited for our exclusive partnership with Above Phone. They're offering us the best phones available at the lowest prices, bundled with essential gear. To better safeguard your freedom, purchase Above Suite, easy-to-use services that integrate with the phone. These services run on their private data center, and you get a VPN that protects your internet traffic from surveillance, a private email, calendar and video conferencing, encrypted chat and calls, and an anonymous search engine. If you need help with technology, don't fear. Above Phone offers the best support out there. Every phone comes with a free 45-minute live call with a real support engineer to help you with the transition. Plus, gain immediate access to detailed guides, video courses, and email and chat support. Feel the power in taking back your technology. Use Above Phone's tools and education to rise above surveillance and break free of the control grid. Privacy and freedom are non-negotiable rights for you, your families, and your communities. Above Phone have created exclusive deals for Z Media viewers, letting you access savings you won't get anywhere else. Purchase now at abovephone.com/Maria. That's abovephone.com/Maria.